Hi everyone, welcome to Culture Clash East Meets West. My name's Marianne.
And I'm Jessica. We are your international sisters. And how do you say sister in Korean?
It's Anni, so we are your global Annis.
Yes.
So today's topic is Korean beauty standards versus Western beauty standards, right Jess?
Yes, today we're going to talk about the toxic diet culture, body standards, plastic surgery, idols, and more. Quick disclaimer, some of these topics might be triggering.
Yes, just to let you know, this is just our own subjective thoughts and opinions and based off of our own experiences. So before we dive in, should we do a quick introduction of ourselves? So Jess, would you like to go first?
My name is Jessica, and I'm from the United States. I've lived in Korea for about 2.5 years. I make TikTok videos about living abroad and various other topics. What about you, Marianne?
Hi, my name's Marianne and I'm from South Korea. I went to the UK when I was 13 all by myself to pursue my studies in the UK. And I make TikTok videos as well, and my content is mainly about cultural differences between the UK and Korea, and I generally just talk about all things Korean.
So welcome to Culture Clash. Let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah, perfect. So Jess, could you share the first topic with us, please?
The first topic we're going to talk about today is diet culture and body standards in Korea versus the West. And when we say the West, we are specifically referring to the US and the UK.
Absolutely. So please feel free to leave any comments and educate us about your country if you're from somewhere else, because we would love to hear from you.
So some of the first differences that I noticed when I first moved here is just overall the beauty standard. Koreans, specifically the girls, all want to be very skinny. Meanwhile, if you go to somewhere like America or the West, it seems like a lot of girls want to have more of like the slim, thick figure, a little bit curvier. Did you notice that too?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I've experienced this personally. So when I was born and raised in Korea, I went to elementary school in Korea. And when I was younger in the elementary school, I used to be like really ashamed of my body shape because I was naturally quite muscly, and some of my friends would call my legs as mudari. There's a term mudari. It means radish legs because the shape of the legs look like the radish. So I would never wear, I'd always be scared of wearing like short skirts or short shorts or whatever. So when I went to the UK, I lived in this place called Bournemouth, which is a very beachy area. And even like whenever I go to the beach, I would never wear, I would always wear long tracksuit and covers my legs and everything. And then, and then people were like, why would you do that? Why are you doing that? They didn't understand. And then obviously like I felt really insecure. And then I suddenly noticed that people were commenting and complimenting on the things that I was not happy about. So my legs and my cheekbones. Having high cheekbones is not a good thing in Korea.
Really?
Yeah,
is
it's
that not?
Not really, no.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah,
a lot of girls back, at least like in the US, it's not uncommon for someone to get like cheekbone filler.
There's a contouring makeup method and stuff like that as well, isn't there, in the West?
Yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm sorry that you went through that. But I guess it's like it's a good experience to go from like, like it's interesting to see what you were insecure about growing up in Korea, and then you go to another country and all of a sudden those are things that other girls are striving to have.
Yeah, so that was really shocking, and that obviously made me feel a lot more confident. Yeah, the cheekbones, and another thing is the jaw lines.
Yeah.
There's a surgery in Korea that like shaves the jaw lines and like the cheekbones and stuff like that. And it's just a completely different beauty standard.
Yeah, it's crazy. I definitely noticed that like growing up in America, and then, when I grew up in like the late 90s, early 2000s, I feel like the beauty standard was a lot more similar to how it is in Korea now, where like you had all the celebrities who were super, super skinny.
Yeah.
And then over the next like couple decades, I think it slowly changed, and you saw a lot more fuller figure girls and stuff like that, which like the BBL, I told some Koreans about how girls get a BBL in America and they could not understand. And I'm like, yeah, people like will want to make themselves curvier in certain areas.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I think Korea is changing now, so they kind of want like the muscly, sort of like fit, more tanned, that sort of beauty. But in general, like in the old days, it's for sure it was like skinny legs. Just 일자다리 was the beauty standard, which means straight legs. And then I'd
yeah.
be like to my friends, oh, those legs are so beautiful. I'd walk around and then my Western friends were like, no, it's not. Like, it's, yeah, so it was different.
Yeah, completely different. When I first moved here, I started just being way more self-conscious of my appearance and stuff, because going back home where I was like a pretty average sized, slim American girl, and then I come here and I'm also on the taller side. So I felt so much like just bigger than everyone, because Western girls naturally have, like bigger bone structure. So as a Western girl, you shouldn't even really try to adhere to the Korean beauty standard, because your body is not naturally built to be like that.
Yeah.
It's like bone frame and everything too.
Yeah.
Something else that I've noticed in Korea is how common it is for people to say that they're on a diet. I think almost every Korean I talk to, they're always saying that they're on a diet. So I think diet culture is a big deal here. Like, you really just hear a lot about it. In America, it's almost kind of rude to ask someone if they're on a diet. Usually it's a very personal thing that you keep to yourself. But here it's like everyone's always just openly talking about it. Do you notice that too?
Yeah. It's a thing. We have a phrase saying that diet is forever. Like 다이어트는 평생 해야 하는 거.
Oh my God.
So you need to go on a diet forever. And all the girls, before they eat something, they'll say something, they'll make comments like, oh, I've gotten so fat, and they're not. And
No,
even I say
so skinny,
it.
so
I say it. I'm
where?
like, I've gained weight, and then people are like, no, you haven't. But so yeah, that is very, very common. So a lot of girls would not eat past 6 o'clock or something like that if they do want to lose weight or being on a diet. So I think rather than going for exercise or doing workouts, I think Korean girls tend to eat less if they want to go on a diet. Going on a diet means not eating. If that makes sense.
That's exactly what I've kind of seen after being here. Because I think in the US, like the standard, obviously, like we've said, it's to be curvier, more muscular. But in the US, usually when you go on a diet, I mean, everyone's different. There will definitely be people who just limit their calorie intake and stuff.
Yeah.
But you do see a lot more girls who they'll do kind of, I've seen guys do where they just eat a lot of protein, they eat a lot of carbs, like certain types of foods, and then they just work out a lot. And they want to build muscle. I think a lot of girls in the West, they don't want to be like skinny. They want to be like healthy looking.
Yeah.
Skinny,
I think that's so different, because I think in one of my TikTok videos, somebody said, oh, why are Korean girls all so fit or something like that because they're skinny. But I was going to say, it doesn't mean that they're fit, because I've noticed that in the West, a lot of girls, even from a young age, you do a lot of sports. Right?
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the things I've noticed a lot when I went to the UK, like hockey, football, netball, like tennis, any sort of sports, and girls were like really into it. In Korea, we do anything possible to get out of PE. So
Maybe Korean, because that was me when I was in gym class though. I was like, I played rec sports when I was younger, but I don't have a very aggressive personality when it comes to sports. But yeah, no, you're right though. It's definitely common for all, like most kids play sports at some point when they're younger.
Yeah, it seemed that it was more intense and common.
But I think it's good. I have noticed that it does seem like things are kind of changing in Korea, where the standard isn't to just be super skinny. I've had guys compliment me saying that I have like a glamour body, which I didn't know what that meant. So when I first heard that and I Googled it, I was like, oh my God, are these guys calling me fat? But I guess that's just a type that some people might prefer. I guess everyone has a different taste. Some people in general might prefer girls who are very thin, but other people might like someone who's a little bit curvier. So exactly. You're always someone's type.
Yeah. So the next topic is the facial structure. So I know this quite a lot because a lot of my international friends would come, or foreigners would come to visit Korea, and my Korean friends would make comments to them, and they find it really strange, because in Korea, having small face is a compliment. So people will say things like, oh, you have really small head, you have really small face, and that's meant to be a compliment. There's a saying called the fist size shape, like your face is the size of a fist. Have you heard of this before?
I have. They'll always describe it like, oh, it's like a fist.
Yeah.
That's such a specific. I get what they're saying, but now I hear you say it. It's a very common thing.
Yeah. Because in the West, how would you perceive it? How would people react?
I think people would be confused. They wouldn't immediately take it as an insult, but I think it would sound almost a little insulting, just because I think in the West, when you compliment someone, it's more like oh, you're really pretty, or like, I like your hair. Listen, it's more of a vague compliment, but to
Yeah.
say something specific, like, you have a small head, because small, no one really would know the connotation. And like, okay, is that good?
Yeah.
Is that bad? Should I have a bigger head?
Yeah. Yeah, or like high nose.
That's something that I've gotten here, and I've always been insecure about my nose. And in America, a lot of girls will get rhinoplasties to have a smaller nose. But then here, people will tell you, oh, you've got a high nose bridge. I'm like, what? Oh, don't tell me that.
Yeah, like I want a higher nose bridge. Yeah. It's 코가 높다. It's a compliment.
But it's so funny because I look at Korean girls and I'm like, oh my God, I'll trade noses with you any day.
Wow.
There's also another strange compliment is to have someone tell you that you have good proportions. Like good body proportions, which the first time I ever heard that, I was like, what does that even mean? I feel like Korean compliments are always just very specific. American compliments are more vague. So can you explain the body proportions?
Yeah.
What that means?
It's called 8등신 is the ideal body proportion. So take your, the length of your face and then you fit it in your body parts. And if it comes to 8 body parts, including your face, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's like the perfect proportion. Or 비율이 좋다, you have good ratio. In Korea, having long legs is a good compliment. Like 다리가 길다, oh, you have really long legs. That's a really good compliment because you have good proportion. I can understand why in the West people might get offended because like I like your hair or I like your clothes. That's something that you can change or you've chosen to wear. Whereas like your face is this, your body is this. It means like you can't change it. And then people are commenting about those things. And I don't think a lot of Koreans understand the differences. So I think it can easily be misunderstood.
Exactly. Yeah. I've learned anytime a Korean says anything to me, I just try to twist it into understanding that they were most likely being nice.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone here openly insults each other. It's always coming from a place of trying to compliment you or caring about you.
Yeah.
Another strange comment I've noticed from Koreans is they'll compare people to different types of animals based on your face.
Yes.
And you see that with K-pop idols too, where they'll be like, oh, he's so handsome. He looks like a fox. Or she's so pretty, she looks like a bunny. But back home, if someone tells you look like an animal, they're going to be like, oh, wait, you think I look like an animal, not a human?
Yeah, exactly. This has been going on for decades. So it started with female celebrities categorizing them into dogs and cats. Whether a celebrity would have a dog face or cat face. And then you'd ask guys, oh, do you prefer dog face or cat face? Women.
And they know what you're talking
about. And that was and that's a normal thing. And even girls are like, oh, I want to do like cat makeup. And I think on TikTok filters now, they have like those fox type of, different types of filters now, animal. That's more like common because of the globalization and everything. But that's really, really common. So what kind of, have you heard anything like that from somebody?
Oh, yeah. I once had a coworker tell me I look like a deer. And that was the first time I'd heard that because I didn't know if that was an insult because, I mean, I guess now looking back, deer is like a cute animal. But in my head, I'm thinking, because in America, it could be an insult if someone told you look like a horse or something, which it's a different animal. But, it was just strange for me to hear. So then I heard later and I was like, oh, that's great. I'll happily look like a deer.
Yeah.
But
I can totally understand where she's coming from because deer, we kind of associate deers with Bambi, the character. Yeah. And deer, I can say it's definitely a compliment. It means you look cute and I can definitely see that. Yeah.
What about you? What animal do you get compared to? I feel like I know, so I'm wondering if it's the same one.
One of my guy friends said dinosaur, but I don't think that was a compliment.
No. That wasn't where my mind was going, don't worry.
He said 공룡상. Yeah. They do that. They can be brutal. I've not really heard anything like that. What were you thinking?
I feel like you give me cat vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like cute, like pretty cat.
Oh,
I see that.
Thank you. I like that.
Which I feel like is the best one to get compared to.
A dinosaur.
Yeah, no. He's lying. I don't see that. He's projecting. He probably looks like the dinosaur.
Yeah,
So is there like an animal that is insulting if you get compared to in Korean? Will somebody tell you look like a turtle or something? That's what my fear is. Someone will compare me to one.
But there is a female celebrity who's really, really pretty and she does have like a vibe of a turtle. Like, do you know the Pokemon? One of the Pokemon characters.
Oh, Squirtle.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a cute.
Yeah.
I guess that's a cute turtle then. Oh, wait, no, I think I did hear this because there was an app a couple years ago it was a Korean app where you would upload your picture and it would tell you what animal you look like. And I think turtle was one of them.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it really worked because every time I tried it on the same picture, it would give me a different result. So
Yeah. I think horse face type or like dinosaur, I think those can be insults.
yeah, universally
Yeah,
insulted, like cow, something like that.
But we don't really have cow. Or pig, 돼지.
Oh my gosh, new fear unlocked.
Yeah, but like it's also a cute way to like tease somebody in Korea. It can be a light sort of like friendly sort of thing.
Like a flirty type of thing.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, 돼지야 그만 먹어. Like stop eating, you pig. But if you
God,
translate it sounds so harsh.
Well, if there's any guy listening to this, please, if you're ever trying to flirt with me, don't insult me. All right, so let's move into the next topic. Next, I think we should talk about the differences in fashion, Korean fashion versus Western fashion, and also makeup. The one big thing that I've noticed, at least when it comes to fashion for girls, is that in America, a lot of the fashion, the makeup, it's all to make you look like sexy and more mature. But in Korea, it seems like the fashion, the makeup, usually the girls are striving to look more cute and a little bit more youthful. So is that what you noticed too?
Yeah. I mean, like nowadays, I think more people are drawn to wear heavier makeup and really like, follow the Western sort of the beauty standards, it seems like. But in Korea, what used to be popular was wearing makeup, but it doesn't look like you're wearing makeup. Those sort of like natural makeup. It's called daily makeup, or I can't remember the name of it, but it looks like you're wearing no makeup, but you are. So that sort of method is very, very popular. It still is. And fashion-wise, I tend to see quite a big difference between Western guys' fashion and Korean guys' fashion. Korean guys, I think, tend to prefer baggy style, like whether it's a t-shirt or they all like to wear trainers. So in the UK, you wear trainers. Do you call them trainers or sneakers?
We usually say sneakers.
What do you call the shoes that you go exercise with, like go running?
Yeah, like you can say like sneakers, like running shoes, tennis shoes, different names.
It seems like in the West or in the UK, you would wear running shoes when you're actually going for a run. But in Korea, a lot of people will just wear running shoes for a daily fashion item or whatever. That's one of the things I've noticed. Yeah, and a lot of Korean men especially would carry a bag that a lot of American guys won't because, it doesn't seem as masculine. Yeah, but you see a lot of guys having one shoulder bag or that sort of thing.
Yeah, it seems like Koreans just overall, they look more put together. It's a lot of oversized, almost like business casual vibe that I see everywhere. Yeah, and a lot of the same colors, like neutral tones or pastels. Then another thing that I've noticed here that you never see in America, I mean, maybe on occasion, probably the UK too, is how common it is for men to wear makeup too sometimes.
Oh, yes.
Where, and if it's just a light BB cream or foundation, back home, I think people will see that as not a masculine thing to do, but I mean, not that I believe that. I think if women can cover up their face, fix blemishes, whatever, then guys should too. But you just never really see that back home. But here, when you go into Olive Young or makeup stores, there'll even be like a beauty section for men, specifically with makeup.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially nowadays, guys really are even more into beauty, taking care of themselves. It's also quite popular to get your eyebrows or your eyeliners tattooed. I followed my mum once because my mum was getting her eyebrows or eyeliners, I can't remember. And in the clinic, literally all of them were guys having patches because they were getting their eyebrows tattooed. And if you go to clinics, and a lot of men, I know some of my friends get laser treatment on their face, so all their beard is gone because having a beard in Korea is considered like unhygienic and dirty. It's not. That's another thing. Like some Western girls or some Western people, they don't mind having beard, but in Korea, not many people like having a beard. Especially if you go to work, you might be commented. They'll think that you don't care about your work or anything like that.
I've noticed that too. I don't even know if I've really seen any Korean guys with a beard or even like stubble. I did know one Korean guy who was in the process of getting it lasered off.
Yeah.
But I feel like you really don't see a lot of facial hair in Korea, unless they're the older ajushi. Sometimes I'll see that.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think in the US, a lot of girls, their ideal type will be a guy with either stubble or a little bit of the 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah.
Or even like a full beard. Personally, I don't like that, but yeah, it's very common. I have a lot of friends who prefer guys who have beards.
Yeah.
But in Korea, you never.
Yeah. I
see
think
that.
one of the reasons is also because genetically Korean men, when they do grow a stubble, it can become patchy. So I think that plays a role. But yeah, in general, guys having long hair and having a beard or a stubble is just considered abnormal. You can still see people do it.
Definitely not as common.
Yeah, not as common.
But I do notice that Koreans just in general, everyone has really good skin. And I don't know if it's always the makeup. Obviously, Korea is known for their skincare and their cosmetic procedures and stuff. So you do definitely see a lot of people who have just a very clear face, no acne, just perfect looking skin.
Yeah. So. I think there's also a saying like, pale versus tanned skin. And then some people say, oh, Koreans love white people's face or whatever. But I just wanted to say what Koreans like is not just a white face or pale face. It's more of a clear, brighter, glowy face. And then I think that got mistranslated somehow. But yeah, freckles are bad things. So if you have freckles or if you have a mole on your face, you can easily get them lasered off as well. Like the procedure is very common in Korea. I think putting sunscreen, that was one of the things. When I first went to the UK, in Korea, I heard from my mom and everybody around me, like, you have to put sunscreen 365 days. Like, oh yeah, even in winter, you have to put sunscreen. And then when I said that to my UK friends, they're like, there's no sun in winter. Like, why do you... yeah, it's raining outside. So they didn't understand it. And another thing is, whenever it rains, we always wear an umbrella. Whereas in the UK, people don't. People really
just go out.
Yeah, people really do take care of, like, their appearance, how they are perceived outside, etc., etc.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that. Because in America, I never wore sunscreen ever. Because I never really would burn. I would just go out. And obviously the standard in America is all the girls want to be really tan. So when I was in America for years, I would go bake my skin in tanning beds and lay in there with no protection, or go to the beach or my pool and just lay outside and just let the sun roast my skin, which not only is it dangerous because of skin cancer, but also you can get premature wrinkles. It's just not a healthy thing.
Yeah.
So I guess that is a good thing coming here. I now learn to put on sunscreen every single day just because I don't want problems. When I look back at pictures from when I did have a tan, I do feel like I looked a lot more lively. But you do see the differences, like the skin tone beauty standard here, like idols. I think it was BTS. People had compared what they look like in their Korea interviews versus their American interviews. And how when you obviously are on TV in America, they're not going to put any filter over you. It's going to be your natural skin tone. And then in Korean media, they'll always put like a brightening filter over their skin. So they put them side by side and it's like a polar opposite, different. I know everyone's taste is different, but I do feel like your natural skin tone always makes you look healthier.
Yeah, I prefer tanned. I prefer tanning as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I just make sure that I put sunscreen or making sure the SPF is over 50. That's a good comment that you made, because if you compare wedding photos, a lot of Korean girls who marry internationally or get married internationally, they are really unhappy with the end result of their photography, because in Korea, they edit so much. I don't know if you've seen any of the wedding photos in that's done in Korea versus in the West. There's definitely a difference for that.
I definitely see that. Oh, another fashion thing that I've noticed is, I guess there's different levels of what is deemed appropriate and inappropriate in Korea. For example, back home in America, you can wear an off-the-shoulder top or a top that has cleavage, and it's not really considered to be super scandalous. It's like a casual outfit, unless it's like a deep V, obviously, but just a slight off-the-shoulder cleavage shirt. I see people wear them and go to work in America.
Yeah.
But if you're wearing something that's really short, like a short skirt, then people will look at that and be like, oh, girl, go put pants on. But in Korea, it's the opposite. It's polite to cover up your cleavage, your shoulders. But then I see a lot of girls out there, even in winter, in the short skirts, short shorts.
Bare legs.
So it's just interesting.
That's so true. It's completely the opposite. I think crop tops, like showing off belly, is more common now. But still off-shoulder or cleavage, the whole perception of if you reveal your top half, it's sexualized somehow. I think it comes from our traditional clothing hanbok. So whenever there's a scene where, you know, hanbok, if you take off the top parts, it's always like the intimate scene, or, you know, it's
that's so interesting.
Yeah, so traditionally, but if you look at the Western like corset, or, you know, the Victorian times, they're showing off.
It's always got the like pushed up.
Yeah.
I never thought of it. That's such a good point. Yeah, it definitely has to go back in history. It all comes from there.
But I don't know about short shorts. But yeah, in Korea, so what girls would normally do is wear baggy t-shirt and short shorts that you can't really see whether they're wearing shorts or not, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But if you do wear something that reveals your top, like cleavage, and then, people will say, you can do whatever you want. But however, I feel like Koreans will judge Koreans more than they would judge foreigners. Like, I see a lot of foreigners wear, like, sleeveless top. It's hot in summer. But Koreans don't actually respond that much. But if I were to do that, a lot of Korean people will actually judge me. Yeah.
Bombastic side-eye. I think I've even noticed, like, when I've gone out in Korea, if I am wearing something that is slightly more revealing on top, I almost feel like I get less attention from guys. But if I wear something cuter or more like this, I feel like I would almost get more attention. So it's really interesting because in America, it's completely the opposite. The sexier you dress, the more attention you're going to get.
I feel like if you do wear something revealing, I think Korean guys will feel really, really shy and will be really afraid to make an eye contact, or like it'd be a crime to even look at you.
Maybe that's the secret then, because I don't want to be approached anymore. So
maybe,
I don't want to be approached or touched. So.
Yeah, just walk on the street like half naked and then you're fine. Okay. Nobody will.
Perfect. Why haven't I thought about this? Okay, so our next topic is going to be about ideal type. So I think if you're not from Korea, or if you're not familiar with Korean culture, this term might sound a little bit strange to you. So Marianne, can you explain what ideal type is?
Yes, so in Korea, there's a term called 이상형, and the literal translation for this is the ideal type. So when we ask each other what our ideal type is, this is usually referring to appearance, like height, face, whether you'd prefer somebody with single eyelids or double eyelids, or, you know, any sort of like broad shoulders, or pretty hands is another sort of ideal type thing in Korea. Or it could just be the vibe, like, I like, my ideal type is somebody cute, or somebody with lots of 애교. Do you know what 애교 is?
Oh, 애교, yeah. You will never see that in America for sure. We should talk about that for a second. Do you want to explain what 애교 is?
No, I'd love to hear it from you, how you perceive what 애교 is.
As far as I know, 애교 just means acting cute. But I guess there's different ways to do it. I almost think like different like levels of 애교. Because you can just be cutesy, giggly, like that could be 애교, but I see people who go over the top. I don't want to demonstrate. I hear it sometimes on the street, like girls when they talk to their boyfriends, they'll talk in the high-pitched voice, just very like cutesy. I don't know if it's to get something that they want, but it seems like a lot of the guys like girls who have a cute persona. I've heard girls like talk to their boyfriend like, "Oppa," and I'm like, oh my God, what is she saying? Is that her natural voice? But it looks like she's getting what she wants. So.
Yeah, there are so many like K-dramas or videos where girls would talk really, really cute on the phone, and as soon as she hangs up, and then she would just act totally differently to a brother or to a sibling. You're absolutely right. It's talking cute, but there's I think there's an intentional and just a natural 애교. I think in Korea, I think some guys are referring to, I like girls with lots of 애교. It doesn't mean like they would artificially do 애교 all the time. It's like within their behavior, it's just a cute behavior that she doesn't even know she's not doing it on purpose. But I think a lot of celebrities, they would show it as a punishment or as a entertainment purpose. And I think that's why some foreigners, non-Koreans, might think, oh, 애교 is so cringe. Yet even Koreans watching those think that it's cringe. Some people do 애교 on purpose. Like, it's so cringe, like, on purpose. Like, Koreans know that. And sometimes it just happens naturally. In one of my TikTok videos, I said how 애교 is a bit like how you talk to your pet.
Yes, that is the best way to explain it. 100%. I talk to every cat in 애교. Like, give it to the cat, not the man. In America, you can see girls act cute with their boyfriends, but it's a lot less common to see guys do it, but in Korea, I'll see some guys who also act cute.
Yeah.
Or even when you go on like photo booths and they'll have cute little hats and ears and stuff to put on. But I think it's nice. It seems like in Korea, guys are more comfortable not being super masculine all the time. So
I was gonna ask, if you compliment a Western guy saying, "Oh, you're
Yeah.
cute," how would a Western guy perceive cute?
Oh, I think most would still perceive it as a compliment, obviously, because I think they can just sense that you're saying that as a compliment. I think if you say cute, they might not interpret it as cute. They might just interpret it as handsome. But is that more common in Korea? Do you think guys like being called cute or hot? Because I think in America, usually me and my friends will be like, oh, he's so hot.
I think guys universally like to hear handsome over cute. I don't really know. I haven't really asked. But I feel like a lot of Korean guys will act cute and they will hear from their girlfriends like, oh, 귀여워. This just like made me think, if you said, oh, you're so cute, what you did is just so cute. Not sweet, but like your action is cute. Your behavior is cute. I don't know how.
Yeah, I think Western guys would probably still like that,
like
especially if it's complimenting, like, "Oh, that was so cute," or "You're being." Yeah, I think they would take that as a
guys
compliment,
like any compliments, I guess. Then.
Yeah, honestly, you could just say anything to them. Call them a dinosaur.
I like dinosaurs, and you look like a dinosaur.
What is your ideal type?
My ideal type. I haven't really thought about that. I think it changes. I definitely would like somebody that gets my sense of humor. So it just feels natural. I need to make sure that we have chemistry, I guess. My ideal type is whoever I find very attractive and handsome. How about you, Jess?
I feel like when people ask that, they always want a specific, like, I want them to be this height. I want them to be this type of person. But I think same is just like chemistry.
I can say that though. I can say that. I prefer guys who are more mathematical or sciencey. I am attracted to guys who are opposite me, who can do things really well that I can't do. Like opposite. And I get on much better with introverts.
Oh, yeah. It's that nice balance, I think.
I don't like guys who talk a lot. I mean, like, because I have to talk. So my ideal type is the MBTI, introvert I, N, because I'm also an N, and then I don't know about T or F. I'm an extreme F emotional person. I have very specific ideas.
So important.
Oh my goodness, this could go on for hours. And I was just like, I don't really know. And now I'm just like, yes.
This is me and Marianne shooting her a shot. So if there are any potential suitors in the audience, our DMs are open.
Oh, I like somebody who likes to plan things and organize things, because I am very the opposite of that. I don't mind following. Basically somebody who's good at things that I'm not good at.
I feel you. I think you need to have the balance. I don't think it should be complete opposites, but I think if two people are very extroverted and they're trying to date each other, they're going to end up talking over each other. It's going to be chaotic. But if they're both too introverted, nothing's going to go anywhere. So
imagine two introverts traveling to Korea or trying to order something. Like you.
That'd be a nightmare. I can't even imagine. I think the humor is like the most important thing, because I've dated some guys before that just came off way too serious. It's all vibe, it's personality. I think when I was younger, maybe I would have more of a set list of physical standards. Now, as long as I find you attractive, doesn't really have to be specific. And you make me laugh, and if you take charge, if you can like be in your masculine energy and you plan the dates and you don't make me cry, that's a very important thing.
Oh, you can make me cry with like happiness, I guess, with like surprise. So as you know already, Korea has become even more popular. I mean, when I was in the UK, people would be like, are you from North or South? But now it's like,
oh my god,
do you know BTS or do you like Blackpink? So idols and celebrities have, you know, really influenced the K culture all over the world. What are your thoughts about idols and celebrities, and do you have anything that you'd like to share?
I feel like the culture is very pushed in your face. And I think that is a huge reason that the beauty standard is as strict as it is, because in America, you have so many different celebrities and they're all different ethnicities and different body shapes, different hair colors, eye colors, such a variety. So if you're growing up in America, you can find someone who will look like you and kind of use them as a role model. But here, I think a lot of Koreans, they all stick to the same beauty standard, which I get as Korea. So like everyone is Korean for the most part. But I think a lot of the K-pop idols you see are going to be very, very thin. And I don't even think it's their fault, because it seems like the Korean fans are also very harsh on them. So if they gain any weight and they're dancing, there'll be like fan cams zooming into certain body parts. But then they lose too much weight and they're calling them a dancing skeleton or some toxic thing that I've seen. I feel for the celebrities here because I think they probably deal with a lot of like scrutiny and stuff. But beauty standard, I think, comes from them. It's so unrealistic because who looks like a celebrity in real life? In America, not everyone looks like Ariana Grande or Taylor Swift or someone.
I think idols and celebrities have a huge impact on the young girls. Like K-pop, I think abroad, a lot of people of all the ages like K-pop, whereas in Korea, it's more for like elementary, middle school, up to high school, and then after uni. Like I used to be really into K-pop, but now if somebody asks me about Stray Kids or Le Seraphim, I'm like, I don't really know, but I like them because they're Korean.
I used to like BTS and stuff, but after being here, I don't hate K-pop, but I'm just so uninterested in it. I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's like what you said, it's more like a youth thing. Back home, it's like I know girls, guys too, who are in their 20s and 30s and even older who are big fans of K-pop artists, and they will be there buying tickets the second they go on sale. But here it's mainly just the younger generation, which I think is kind of sad because they're the most impressionable when it comes to beauty standards and stuff. If they're preteens, teenage years, they're like going through puberty and they're wondering, why don't I look like this K-pop idol who is my age and she looks like this and I look like me.
Yeah, it's very common to compliment somebody being like, you look like a celebrity, you look like somebody. So it's always trying to copy the other influencer or an idol. Yeah. And obviously netizens' comments can be very toxic, which leads to other issues in South Korea.
I think another thing to keep in mind with the celebrity culture and the idols and everything is that I'm pretty sure, isn't it all of them have plastic surgery? We should talk about plastic surgery in Korea because I think that is a huge topic in itself. So what are your thoughts?
Yes, so some people, fans will say, oh, this idol, this celebrity didn't get plastic surgery. I mean, like, this is my subjective opinion. I think every single celebrity or idols would have had some sort of procedure to be on TV. And then having that sort of procedure is just so common in Korea. I'm sure you know, but in Korea, there are so many different hospitals and clinics per building. There are like 5 of them per building, and they specialize in different areas. And, plastic surgery in Gangnam, there must be hundreds. And it's really easy to get a treatment or get something done, and it's not even that expensive. So a lot of girls actually get plastic surgery because they feel very insecure about their face shape and body shape. And also, not gonna lie, I think parental behavior is very different. That's one of the things that I've really noticed between Korea and the UK when I went, like the parental talk, how parents talk to their kids and how they treat. And I think this could be another topic easily.
I'm so interested to see what you noticed.
Parents would say like, oh yeah, my daughter has ugly nose but she can get plastic surgery. But it's not like a horrible, it's just a normal thing that they would say.
Yeah. I've heard that here. I've heard some Koreans make comments about their kids. In America, maybe parents always tell you from a young age, like, you're so beautiful, you're the most beautiful girl in the world.
Not
like,
in Korea.
Koreans are very honest. I think sometimes maybe too honest, but it's kind of sad. But I do see plastic surgery is incredibly common. Like, you see the ads everywhere. Just like in general, you see mirrors a lot of places in Korea, like on the subways. And it's really hard to not let it affect you because it's like you're constantly seeing these ads for plastic surgery. Even if you don't intentionally do it, you're body checking because you're walking by these full-length mirrors all the time. When you're seeing other people do the same thing.
Yeah, because your friend has done it and you feel like you have to do it as well. Because now you're the ugly one,
Exactly. It's all about fitting in. And it's like if all your friends, if all your classmates, if everyone around you is getting some sort of plastic surgery procedure, you instinctively just think that that's normal and you need to do it too. And it's much cheaper here than it is in America. So I guess it is much more normalized. But I've heard that even kids from a young age, they'll get plastic surgery as presents for graduation. Because in America, plastic surgery is common, but not quite as common. There's more of a taboo around it. It's kind of like if you get something done, a lot of people will want to keep it a secret. But in America, it is common to get fillers, like lip fillers, cheek fillers, whatever. But in Korea, not just like filler, it's more like a whole nose job, which is a very invasive surgery. So
I think it used to be more of a taboo thing, and now it's become more of a popular thing, and you do whatever you want. But honestly, the procedure, that's very, very common. And those surgeons, plastic surgery places, they have promotions after like 수능, KSAT.
Oh my God.
Like
that's crazy.
Discounts for
like you take the test and then you can go get it. I did not know that. So it's literally marketing it specifically towards younger kids.
Yeah.
I don't know what age your face is fully developed, but I'm not like pro plastic surgery. Obviously, like I'm not saying everyone should get it, but if you're insecure about something and you want to fix it, I think you should, if you have the money to, of course. But I'm pretty sure your face isn't even fully developed until you're well into your 20s. Because I think my face changed a lot just growing up naturally.
On my TikTok, loads of people ask me for like, oh, where is good to go? But I do want to say you can get scammed. So the doctor will not do it for you. It'll be somebody else who illegally did for you.
Someone
there
died,
are a lot of there are a lot of like shady parts as well. So yes, plastic surgery is very common in Korea, but even Koreans are very careful when they do get it done. But it seems that it's becoming more and more popular from people abroad coming into Korea to get the procedure. And I just want to say, for anybody listening to this podcast, if you plan to, really do your research, because it doesn't mean it's safe. Like, people die from it, and people have, the result is really, really unsatisfactory, and they suffer for a long time. So I think you have to choose very carefully as well.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're doing something that's permanent, some type of surgery that's invasive, something you can't reverse easily. And I think it's important, especially if you're being put under anesthesia for something. I do think there was a story, I don't remember how long ago it was, but it was a foreigner who came here and got, I think it was like a jaw surgery.
Oh, yeah, that's very popular.
Away.
Yeah.
Because I guess the doctor, I don't remember what exactly happened. I don't want to give wrong information, but it was something like the doctor wasn't the right one to do the surgery. Do your research. Also try to maybe find someone, if you know someone who knows someone, like a reputable place. Check and see if they have Instagram. Check and see if it's like a real Instagram, and there's maybe influencers or people who've been there who can say that they went there and they got something done.
There's an app called, I don't know, Pabitalk or something like that. There's an app. I don't know if they will have English translation or whatever, but you can always Google image translate. Those have loads of hospitals, and they have real reviews and doctor profiles and things like that. So I just don't want anybody to come to Korea. Korea is like amazing for plastic surgery, so I'm just gonna get everything done, because there are darker side of things that people don't know.
Exactly. Especially if you're putting potentially your life in the hands of a doctor, like you should do your research and make sure.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times I feel like if the place is really cheap, because plastic surgery here is cheaper, but if it's like a really cheap place, it's probably cheap for a reason.
Yeah.
So it might be smarter to go to a place that might be a little bit more expensive. Like, I'll be honest, I get my lips filled, and the place I go is definitely, I think, pricier compared to other places that I've heard who do lip filler, but I know that they've never boshed me. I'm confident that they have always done a good job, and I've seen some people who go in for lip filler, which it's not permanent, but they come out and it just looks like very wonky because they went and took that cheap route.
Yeah, and it must be heartbreaking to see it every time.
Yeah. And in a foreign country too, where then you have to pay the money to get them dissolved or go in and get them fixed. So definitely, if anyone watching is considering anything like that, do your research, talk to people, look at that app if you can, for sure.
And at the end of the day, if you're like really not happy with how you look, you can always edit your photos. That's what a lot of Koreans do.
Korea has all the Photoshop in the world.
I use
common.
filters. Jess, have you been to one of those like photo booths? So at the moment, Korea, what's really, really popular, and I really love this as well, is one of those like cashierless places you go in and you pay like 4,000 won, and that's about $3 in $3 and then you get photos taken with your friends. And there's so many of them.
You see the photo booths everywhere in Korea. That's something I've never seen back home. All those little like photo booth stores, and you can put on cute hats and stuff like that. But I have noticed that the cameras, I think a lot of them will Photoshop your face, which I mean, those aren't anything drastic, but it will like smooth your skin. Sometimes I think it'll brighten your skin because it's Korea. And another thing, I don't know if it's a thing in the US, but
if you have a boyfriend, he is responsible to take like hundreds and thousands of good photos.
Koreans love taking selfies because if you're out taking pictures in America, there will be a lot of people who judge you kind of. But here, it's everywhere. You go to a cafe and there's always the guy.
Yeah.
He's the photographer.
And then he returns his phone to the girlfriend and girlfriend looks at it and be like, again.
I love watching it because the guy, he doesn't complain about it. He's like, this is my place. I'm the boyfriend. Yeah. I'm also the photographer.
Yeah. But another thing that I've noticed that's very, very different is that people would take photos below up in Korea. So have you noticed that? So if you ask any Koreans to take a photo of you, like a full body, usually in America, they would literally just take a photo like this, like whatever.
They don't have that same artistic eye, I think.
But Koreans like to lower the camera, but in America, they don't like it because it makes you look like you have double chin and stuff. But in Korea, what's more important is your body proportion. Like having longer legs.
It elongates you. It makes your head look smaller. I have seen that. That's why I trust Koreans when they take a picture of me, because a lot of times if I ask an American friend, oh, can you take a picture of me? It's just like, okay. And with Koreans, it's like, okay, get in that angle and then we're going to take a burst this way and then move a little bit this way and we'll take some more. I'm like, okay, this is what I wanted. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So this is advice to anybody listening to this podcast. If you're traveling anywhere, you are anywhere, and if you want your photos taken, ask somebody that looks like a Korean or Asian and they'll become your photographer. Personal photography.
I see them out a lot of times with the selfie sticks too. I think a lot of things in Korea, like all the cafes, everything's very aesthetic, specifically for taking pictures and stuff. Back home, it's like if you do Photoshop your pictures, usually you'll just take it on your like iPhone, just regular camera, and then later you can go in and like Facetune, like smooth, whatever. But here, everyone uses Snow app or Beauty, whatever. So it's actually a camera. You can use it and it looks good, but I do see some people who go way too far with it. It'll be like very small chin, very big eyes. Not to where they don't look like themselves. They also don't look like a human. Or they'll shrink their head on their body to be like tiny, tiny, tiny. I see guys too.
Yeah. Oh, have you ever been catfished by any chance?
I've never been fully catfished. It's very obvious when someone very much Photoshops their pictures. Yeah. But one time I did meet a guy online, and when I met him in person, he looked much older than he did in his pictures because I think he had just overdone the Photoshop. And I remember, funny story, I mean, I don't think he's going to watch this or whatever, but like, hey, what's up if you do? So we were at a cafe, and I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and he was taking selfies of himself. And I saw in the picture how all the settings were all turned all the way up. And then he was like, oh, do you want a picture? And I was like, sure. So I gave it. And he was so surprised that I didn't use Snow or whatever one he was using. And then I realized he would turn it all the way up so his neck is super low. His eyes are super big and his forehead's like... And I was like, oh my God, I'd never seen a guy do that before. Really? So I was kind of shocked. But but you can use them. And I think it can make your photos look really good. I think you just have to know
the right amount, not too much.
Exactly. But in America, we have Face App and Facetune and stuff, which is the same. It doesn't matter what country. Everybody wants to make themselves look like the best versions that they can.
Exactly.
So I think that's all that we have time to say today.
Yeah. Well, it was super fun, wasn't it?
Yeah. I had a great time.
Yeah, me too. And I honestly think that talking about and sharing our cultural differences is going to be very important and very informative for global education as well. And because like some of the stuff we talked about, there's a lot of misunderstanding that's happening. Like the compliments, like the deer face and the fist-shaped head. It was really been good talking about this. And I hope the listener can learn something or get some information from this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to also talk about this and have this conversation openly, because a lot of people who come to Korea or who are in Korea right now, you might be in your head thinking like, oh, I don't match these beauty standards, so I must not be beautiful. But you might not match the beauty standards in one country, but you might match them in another country. So just because you don't look like these models on magazines or that you see on TV, it doesn't mean that you're not beautiful. So don't let that get to you. You shouldn't change anything about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You're beautiful the way you are anyway, and you don't need to change anything. We don't need to change anything. So
exactly. We're all beautiful. We're all hot. Don't worry. So we'd love to hear from you guys. Let us know what your culture is like. We have a lot of ideas for future episodes, so stay tuned. We have plenty more coming up.
Yeah, you guys can follow us on Instagram at kultureclashpodcast and YouTube.
Subscribe to this channel.
Please. And if you guys have any questions, we can answer them in the next episode. And thank you for watching. And yeah, it's been great.
It was so great. So we will see you guys in the next episode.
Bye. 안녕.
안녕.